There is a specific kind of person who walks into a room and feels absolutely nothing when nobody notices them. And they are not broken. They are not socially awkward. They are just wired differently. The psychology behind this, what actually happens inside your brain when you genuinely do not care about impressing anyone, reveals why some people seem immune to social pressure while others crumble under it. And if you are watching this, there is a reason. See, here is what is wild. We have spent decades studying social anxiety, approval seeking, people pleasing, all the ways humans desperately try to be liked. But only recently have researchers started asking a different question. What about the people who do not try at all? The ones who wear the same clothes every day? The ones who do not update their social media? The ones who leave conversations without worrying if they said the right thing? There is a term for this: low social monitoring, and it is not what you think. First, let us get real about what the need to impress actually does to your brain. Because this is not just caring what people think. When you are constantly trying to impress others, whether through appearance, achievements, or personality, your nervous system is essentially running a nonstop performance anxiety protocol. Studies show that chronic social evaluation activates the same threat response as physical danger. Your brain does not know the difference between being judged negatively and being physically threatened. The effects are measurable: elevated cortisol, racing thoughts, hypervigilance about how you are being perceived. Some people spend their entire lives performing. And here is the key part. This is not a character flaw. This is social conditioning. Your brain has been trained to believe your worth depends on external validation. Research on impression management found that people driven to impress experience everything from chronic stress to decision paralysis. Every choice gets filtered through what will others think. Your authentic preferences get buried under layers of performance. But here is where it gets interesting. Because what happens when you stop caring, that is where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. Here is what researchers discovered that changes everything. People with no desire to impress are not lacking social awareness. They have something else entirely: secure internal validation. And this is not about arrogance. That is overcompensation, needing to prove you are better. What we are talking about is different. This is when your sense of worth is so stable internally that external opinions become background noise. When you do not need anyone to validate your choices, that is when something unexpected happens. You become unshakable. Not because you do not care about people, but because you do not need them to approve of you. Here is the paradox that might actually explain why these people seem magnetic. The ones who genuinely do not try to impress are often the ones people find most impressive. They stopped performing. They became authentic. If you are someone who constantly monitors how you are perceived, you probably cannot imagine operating this way. Because real indifference to impression management, the kind that creates genuine confidence, it requires divorcing self-worth from social feedback. And if that is where you are right now, realizing you have spent years performing for an audience that does not matter, you are actually in the most powerful position for change. But wait, before you think this is about becoming cold or disconnected, let me stop you right there. Having no desire to impress does not mean being antisocial. Let me say that louder for everyone confusing authenticity with rudeness. You can be kind, engaged, and present without needing validation. They are not mutually exclusive. You can simultaneously care about people and not care about their approval. Some people with low impression motivation are the most genuinely connected because they are not performing. Your brain is holding two truths: I value relationships, and I do not need external validation. The research identifies 5 psychological traits that predict low impression motivation. 1. High internal locus of control. You believe your worth comes from within, not from external opinions. 2. Secure attachment style. You do not need constant reassurance because your foundation is stable. 3. Low neuroticism. You are not plagued by what if they think I am weird thoughts. 4. Strong personal values. You know what matters to you. So external opinions cannot shake that foundation. 5. Self-acceptance. You have made peace with who you are, flaws included. But here's the part that makes this deeply human. Not everyone operates this way, and that is okay. There is no moral hierarchy here. Some people are naturally more socially attuned. Some people thrive on external feedback. The path of not caring what others think is not superior. It is just different. And if you are sitting here thinking, but I care so much what people think, I cannot help it. Yeah, that is conditioned behavior. The people who have no desire to impress, they all share something that has nothing to do with confidence in the way we typically define it. They get exhausted with performing, not in a dramatic way, in a bone-deep cellular way. There is this moment, and if you have been there, you know exactly what I am talking about, where pretending to be someone else becomes unbearable. The cost becomes undeniable. They establish authenticity not because they read it in a self-help book, but because their nervous system literally demands it. Being real becomes self-preservation, not rebellion. They stop seeking external validation. And here's what the research shows. Intrinsic motivation, self-directed goals, even just one area of life where they refuse to perform. These are not luxuries. They are the difference between performing forever and living authentically. Recent studies on impression management found that people who stop trying to impress develop specific psychological patterns, reduced social anxiety, increased decision-making clarity, and what researchers called authentic self-presentation, showing up as you actually are rather than a curated version. That last part is critical. Performative authenticity, where you carefully curate how real you appear, keeps you stuck. But genuine authenticity, simply being yourself without monitoring the response, can actually facilitate deep connection and self-acceptance. So here's what I need you to understand about the psychology of people who do not care about impressing anyone. You are not weird for being this way. Your indifference to status games, your comfort with being unremarkable, your refusal to update your wardrobe for trends. These are evidence that your brain has deprioritized social performance. And if you have started noticing changes, that you stop posting on social media for validation, that you wear what is comfortable, that you leave parties without worrying if you are interesting enough, that is not you being antisocial. That is you reclaiming mental energy from performance anxiety. The research is clear. Impression management is exhausting. But freedom from it does not mean isolation. For many people who stop trying to impress, those shallow connections fall away. And what remains are relationships based on who they actually are, not who they pretended to be. Here's what gets me about research on low social monitoring. It is not about becoming a hermit. It is about acknowledging that some humans are wired to prioritize internal validation over external approval. We are meaning-making machines. And sometimes when we stop performing for others, we discover what we actually think and want. Not everyone gets there. The timeline is different for everyone. And you do not owe anyone an explanation for not caring about their opinion. But if you have stopped trying to impress people and you are still here, still showing up as yourself, still refusing to perform, that is not arrogance. That is liberation. Your brain is literally restructured. Your need for approval has diminished. You are becoming someone who knows the difference between connection and performance, between genuine interest and social obligation, between being liked and being known. The psychology of having no desire to impress is not about being superior. It is about discovering that external validation is optional. And when you stop seeking it, you get to build a life around what actually matters to you, not what looks good to others. That is not rebellion. That is self-knowledge. And it is happening inside you whether you label it confidence or indifference. Here's what most people will not tell you about stopping the performance. It makes you polarizing. Some people will love your authenticity. Others will find you off-putting because you are not playing the social game. You lose acquaintances who only like the performed version, and you gain deeper relationships with people who like the real one. If that resonates with you, you are not alone. You are just wired for authenticity over approval, for depth over breadth, for being known by few rather than liked by many. And that is valid, even when it feels lonely. The cost is real. The social rejection is real. The moments where you wonder if you should just try harder to fit in are real. But so is the freedom when you realize you do not have to. The psychology of surviving toxic people is not about being unbreakable. It is about discovering that when you break, you get to choose how you put yourself back together. And sometimes those repaired places become the strongest parts of who you are. That is not a fairy tale. That is neuroscience. And it is happening inside you right now. If this hit home for you, if you have no desire to impress anyone and you thought something was wrong with you, please subscribe.